When the Edmund Fitzgerald went down, the rescue crews searched for days. They found wreckage, lifeboats torn to pieces, and scattered life jackets floating in the freezing waves. But not a single body. People thought it was strange. Normally, drowning victims resurface after a few days. But Lake Superior is no ordinary lake. The site where the Fitzgerald rests is now treated as a sacred underwater grave. In fact, trespassing there can bring fines in the millions. Why so much protection? What did they know that the public didn't? The answer lies in what divers finally discovered in 1994, a discovery that shocked everyone. When the Fitzgerald first touched water in June 1958, people couldn't believe its size. At 729 feet long, it was the biggest ship ever to sail the Great Lakes, just 1 foot shorter than the maximum allowed for the St. Lawrence Seaway. For 17 years, it hauled iron ore pellets from Minnesota to industrial cities like Detroit and Toledo. It was fast, dependable, and earned the nickname the Mighty Fitz. At the helm was Captain Ernest McSorley, a man with over 40 years of experience on the Great Lakes. By 1975, at age 63, he was preparing for retirement. But first, he agreed to make one last voyage. On November 9, 1975, the Fitzgerald left Superior, Wisconsin, carrying more than 26,000 tons of iron ore pellets bound for Detroit. Another freighter, the SS Arthur M. Anderson, traveled with it across Lake Superior. At first, the waters were calm, but by the next day, everything had changed. Sailors have a name for November storms on the Great Lakes, the Witches of November. And this storm was one of the worst. Winds hit near hurricane force. Gusts reached 86 km/h. Waves rose as high as 35 feet, tossing ships around like toys. By afternoon, the Fitzgerald was in trouble. McSorley radioed the Anderson to report a bad list. The ship was leaning heavily to one side. Both radars had failed. Towering waves were crashing over the deck. Still, McSorley's voice was calm. He said it was one of the worst storms he had ever faced. He and the Anderson's captain tried to guide their ships toward Whitefish Bay, Michigan, the nearest safe harbor. At 7:10 p.m., the Anderson asked how the Fitzgerald was holding up. McSorley replied, "We're holding our own." Those were his last words. Minutes later, the Fitzgerald vanished from radar. No mayday call, no flare. One moment it was there. The next it was gone. The 729-foot freighter and all the 29 men aboard had disappeared into the storm. Even with the storm still raging, the Anderson turned back, determined to find survivors. The Coast Guard launched aircraft and asked nearby ships to help. For days they searched. All they found were pieces, smashed lifeboats, ripped rafts, broken jackets. Not one crewman was recovered. The lifeboats told the story. They hadn't been launched. They'd been torn away. The end had come too fast. On November 14, 1975, a Navy patrol plane picked up a strong magnetic signal 17 miles northwest of Whitefish Bay. Sonar confirmed it. The Fitzgerald lay in two pieces, 530 feet down. The bow rested upright, the stern upside down, with twisted steel scattered between. The evidence suggested the ship had hit bottom with tremendous force. The Coast Guard concluded the cargo hatches may have failed, letting tons of water pour in. Others thought the ship struck a shoal or even broke apart on the surface. The truth is still debated, but all agree on one thing. It sank so quickly that no one had time to escape. The lake was 36 degrees that night, cold enough to paralyze in minutes. Survival suits weren't standard then, so the crew had no chance. In 1976, the Navy sent down a remote camera. The images showed the ship torn apart, but no trace of the men. In 1980, Jean-Michel Cousteau, son of Jacques Cousteau, visited the wreck in person. He reported heavy damage, but again, no bodies. Then, in 1994, nearly 20 years later, Canadian explorer Dr. Joseph McInnes and a private team led by Fred Shannon made multiple dives. That's when the truth surfaced. Near the bow, lying face down in the mud, they found one of the missing crew. His coveralls were still intact. He wore a life jacket, its canvas rotted, but the cork float still visible. It was clear he had tried to save himself. The freezing water had preserved him. When footage of this appeared in a 1995 documentary, Families were horrified. They hadn't expected to see their loved ones' remains on television. The outcry was so strong that officials declared the wreck a protected grave. In 1995, families agreed on one final act. The ship's 200-pound bronze bell would be raised as a memorial. In its place, divers lowered a replica engraved with all 29 names. On July 4, 1995, the bell was brought up. Families wept as it broke the surface. Today, it stands at the Great Lakes Shipwreck Museum in Whitefish Point, Michigan, while the replica bell remains with the ship. From then on, nothing else would be disturbed. The Fitzgerald was no longer just a wreck. It was a grave. In 1997, Michigan passed a law making it illegal to publish or display images of human remains from a shipwreck without family approval. And in 2006, Ontario declared the site an official underwater grave. Penalties for disturbing it can reach $1 million. The Fitzgerald lies where it fell with all 29 men still aboard. The bell rings above the water for the living. The replica rings below for the dead. Lake Superior never gave them back, and perhaps that's the way it should be.